Welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, welcome. In this channel, I talk about career and personal development using different and innovative techniques, methods, approaches such as ontological coaching, integral theory, and positive psychology. So welcome. Today I want to talk about a little bit about the intersection between performance and culture and how we work in our organization. So I noticed that many people, when they are making a decision about their career paths, if they should go to a particular company, a particular organization, a particular sector, or even should I change jobs, should I explore a different organization, I think people usually put a lot of emphasis on two things. One is really how well that organization is performing, right? So of course I want to join a high performing organization. I want to join, if it's a private company, it's a private company that is producing, generating revenues and profits, because I know that company, that place is going to have a future for me, right? So the performance is extremely important, but also the overall offer, I would say, is even more important, right? So what's the offer on the paper here that they are making to me? Like, how much am I going to make here? What's the salary? What are the benefits? What is the conditions of working, right? Working hours. And nowadays, it's very, very important to consider, is this a virtual job? Is this a in-person job? How many days a week do I need to go to the office? And all of that, it's important. I'm not going to argue with that. It is important. But in this framework, I want to bring another element, which is the working environment culture. What is the culture of this organization? And more importantly, not only the culture of the broader organization, but the culture, the microculture of my team, of my function, of my particular parts of the organization. So I want to present you this matrix that I created, and it's very simple in nature. I like this kind of approach where we look at difficult and complex problems with simplicity as well, right? And it's a matrix where we're gonna discuss a little bit about the intersection between performance and culture, right? So on one side of the spectrum, you have organizations that have low performance and unhealthy culture, right? So I think it's very easy for us in a way to understand that we do not want to join this type of organizations, right? I mean, if the performance is not there, if the culture is unhealthy, and what do I mean by that? Well, unhealthy cultures, they can manifest different ways. But usually you have an element of lack of development. So it's an organization where there's no career path, no career development. You usually have much more autocratic process of decision making. So it's a very hierarchical organizations, right? So these are organizations where my opinion really doesn't count. It's much more like I gotta do what I am told to do. Working hours. Usually these are organizations where the working hours are tremendous. I mean, you got to be working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, right? And that's not healthy as well. And many other elements that we can summarize and distinguish and say that culture is unhealthy. So that's one side of the spectrum. Then you have different realities where you might have an organization that has a healthy culture, which is pretty much the opposite of everything I just said, right? So the culture is really healthy, but the performance is not there. And then the question becomes, well, do I really want to join that type of organization? Because the culture might be very happy, but if the numbers are not there, if we are not delivering the results year over year, does this company has a future? Do I have a future in that organization, right? It's going to be very difficult to sustain a future if at the end of the day, year after year, do not deliver results. And in the other part of the matrix, you can see, which to me, unfortunately, is the most common type of organizations, in this current moment we are living, right? If you look at the marketplace and you look at not only like, this is what I hear from people that I coach, and I've coached hundreds of people over the years from different markets, from different continents, from the US, from Europe, from Latin America, even from Asia. And also based on what we hear and we see from the news, right? So if you go to Wall Street Journal, if you go to places where you can really try to understand what's going on in the companies, right? Inside the companies, the most common type of organization today is an organization that has high performance, right? It is delivering the numbers. It is delivering the revenues, the metrics, the financial metrics, the profits, margins, and everything. But the culture is unhealthy, right? And that's very, very problematic, because we might make good money if we join this type of organization, might have, a interesting package of benefits. But at the end of the day, we are kind of dragged and our energy is sucked. And we feel that feeling that, our cup is empty. And it creates burnout, and it's going to create so many other, adverse effects, right? If you can make this analogy here. So the disengagement, right? So we see statistics that show that today, about 30 to 40% of the employees in America are disengaged with their jobs, right? So that thing about feeling resigned, I'm going to do what I got to do because I need to pay my bills, but I'm not really vested into this because I do not agree with this culture, right? So very important. That's what I always tell the people I work with and the people that seek me for coaching and mentorship. I say, if you get a good offer, it's just the beginning of the exploration phase. You need to spend time digging into what is the culture of that organization, right? Does it fit with my values? Do I want to be in that place? And do I see myself there over a significant number of years, right? Because that's how you build a career. You're not going to build a career just jumping from one place to another necessarily. And then we have the desired organization, in my opinion, which is difficult to find, but it's possible, right? So you have a high-performing organization that is delivering the goals and the metrics and the execution and the financial targets and everything else. But you also have a healthy culture, right? And that's generated by the leadership and by the employees, right? So when we say what produces a healthy culture, it's not only the leadership. Culture is not driven just by the leadership. It's also driven by each individual that is part of that team, that organization, right? So these are the places I want to be when I think about my career. And these are the places that, look, if you are there, you might not be making more money than in the unhealthy, high-performing organization. You might make a little less or even, but you have, at the end of the day, a better feeling, and you are in a culture that develops you. You are in a culture where there's trust, where there's collaboration, true collaboration, there's innovation, and there is a sense of accountability and performance and sense of urgency, right? So you have a combination of all those factors. And I'm a strong believer that that's where we need to drive our careers, and that's where, as leaders, we need to produce teams and organizations that go into this direction, right? They deliver results, astonishing, fantastic results with a very extremely healthy culture, right? And to do that, we also need to start addressing the elephant in the room, which is there is this overarching belief in the minds of many of people in the corporate setting that's impossible, right? And that goes back, in my opinion, to the Industrial Revolution. You know, the whole process we've been living in this last 300, 400 years since organizations started to form, and we created, you know, mankind created this astonishing process called Industrial Revolution that later became, now it's the technological revolution, right? But really started, and is a process that's been going for centuries now, that leaders still believe, many leaders still believe, that employees are lazy and you need to monitor them, you need to be checking on them all the time, otherwise they're not going to be doing work, right? And that you cannot build trust with them, right? And you need to lead by fear and things like that, right? That's how you produce results. Unfortunately, that's still the majority of the leaders and organizations that are out there, right? And they are in this other quadrant, like high-performing organizations in terms of numbers and toxic culture, right? Unhealthy, toxic culture. So we need to start breaking that belief system and showing there is a different way. There is a different way. There is a healthier way, a better way of doing things when you create a healthier culture with accountability, with sense of urgency, with clear goals, with clear responsibilities, right? So it's possible. It's possible to have a healthier culture, a healthy culture, and a high-performing organization, right? And that's my invitation to you all. Whether you are a team leader, where you are the leader of a function, where you are the leader of a country in your organization, your company, whether you are an individual, whether you're somebody who works in that organization as an individual, you do not manage directly anybody, but you all have this power and responsibility of driving a better culture in your organization, okay? So that's my invitation to you all. Let's do it. That's our job. Drive better, healthier cultures that you will eventually lead to better results as well. Subscribe to my channel. Leave your comments here. You know, I appreciate if you can share the video with your network, with your friends, with your colleagues. And if you want to talk to me, if you want to talk about coaching, about mentorship, if you're seeking some career support for your own journey, I am available. You can write it to me. You can send me a message here on YouTube and we're gonna chat, okay? Thank you so much. Have a great and fantastic week ahead. Take care.